Alessandro Festa, Alex, if you want. I'm the Senior Product Manager responsible for the Artificial Intelligence Initiative at SUSE. SUSE is one of the longest maintainer of Linux. We are 29 years on the market. And we basically are an infrastructure company. And that's basically the focus of my job, delivering infrastructure-based solution toward the AI project to help out AI practitioners to make their job easier. Oh, well, that's really a pretty funny story. So me and one of my engineers that now is moved toward another company, we created a pet project called K3ai. K3ai is a command line application that basically allows you to deploy infrastructure and AI platform solutions without having to learn how to do so. So we try to basically simplify the life of data scientists and data citizens in order to provide them stuff like Kubernetes, Kubeflow pipelines, and in a way that actually they don't have to basically spend time learning how to deploy them and manage them. So curiously enough, while we were basically working on this, we were launching this, we met the Civo guys, and Civo was really just born. And we de-engaged one to each other, and we started actually to use the Civo infrastructure to basically showcase the capability of K3ai and learn about all the goodness of Civo. And that's where the relationship actually started. So from that point, basically we witnessed the launch of the US data center, now the German data center, and we keep using Civo services all the way in actually to use along with K3ai or other projects like FuseML that are MLOps specific solutions. Well, mainly there are two use cases. One is, of course, rapid prototypation, rapid A/B testing. So basically what we do is literally spin up quickly a cluster in our CI environment, inject the cluster with the new version of the tools. So try out, for example, plugins more practically. From time to time, we add more plugins to the K3ai. And in the case of K3ai, you've eventually installed specific platforms like Katib or MLflow or for example, H2O. In that case, you want to test out in your CI that everything works as expected. And so we need to quickly spin up a cluster, test it, and reverse. In other cases, this is more toward the end user. You want to have different size of cluster to understand in benchmarking your training models. So in that case, you eventually want to scale the cluster quickly without basically spending time to, again, not just to understand how to do so, but actually to do it properly. And Civo is great as a partner for that point, because we can literally change the size of a cluster on almost in real time and then move from there and then keep working without hassle. Yes, absolutely. So one of the challenges we used to have is the need of a cluster that were spin up really fast and the simplicity of using services. So we use other services, other vendors. And typically the problem was facing the complexity that grow over time. And having a streamlined kind of work where we can all focus on our job and not actually to maintain this complex infrastructure. When it comes to Civo, the simplicity of the platform, the simplicity of even using the API from Civo actually solve those challenges and make our job way easier. So one of the challenges these days there is in the machine learning space, on the AI space, is that the majority of tools that run on top of Kubernetes, they require specific stack, namely, for example, Istio. there's no way actually to run away from Istio, because the majority of tools like Qflow, for example, they require Istio as a component, or certification manager, or other stuff like that. Other is native. Native along with KF serving is actually a mandatory stack on top of your Kubernetes, but also other kind of tools. That is made very easy from the Civo marketplace, because that again is a great feature of Civo. Because whenever I want to spin up the cluster, I can literally deploy the Istio mesh, or I can literally deploy things like Git, for example, for a Git repo or other stuff that otherwise I should spend time in setting up, manage them, and etc. That perfectly fit, for example, with the project of us, FuseML, that is toward MLOps, and we take care of those components. And typically, we take care in terms of we deploy those components on the local Kubernetes. But that means also that we need to take care of each version, everything there, the complexity, and so on. When it comes to Civo, all we have to do is basically almost one single API call, decide the configuration of a cluster we want to have, and all those stacks will be there. So again, and really short, on top of Kubernetes, the stack that I typically have is the typical monitoring, Prometheus, Grafana, Istio mesh typically, Cat native, and that's the basic for the majority of the AI platforms. So one mandatory requirement when it comes to AI is acceleration, hardware acceleration, whether it is GPUs, whether it is FPGA or TPUs. So I know Civo has some works done on the GPU side. So basically that's the feature that I would expect to be expanded, because one really useful feature would be actually to spin up a cluster, be able to select the kind of GPUs you want to use, and eventually slice them or anyways basically attach them directly to the cluster. So this way you can speed up your training phases.